Okay, I don't exactly have a way to start this video, so, Bop. Bop is one of the many people part of the FNAF Scratch community, where she's known for, well, obviously making FNAF fan games on Scratch. Like, a lot of them. Like, a lot of them. Like 84 of them. Now with that amount of games being made by one person, obviously not every single one is going to be talked about by all of her fans and whatnot. Some are bound to slip through the cracks, you know? What an undefined amount of time near normal 2 will have its time to shine one day. So yeah, that's basically the long way of me explaining that I want to talk about the MulticoloRs games today. All 3 of these games were all made for 3 separate game jams that were made within 3 days, 1 week, and 3 weeks respectively across 3 years. Now I should probably state before we actually begin talking about these games that if I do ever make any more videos on Bop's games, they're going to be kind of in this style, where they're short and only really covering a series and not a load of games. Like the Hours with the Man series has over 8 games and like 4 spin-offs, and I'm going to be genuinely talking about those games for like hours. So let's start with something simple, you know, like the MulticoloRs games, beginning with the first entry in the series. So MulticoloRs 1 is certainly a game. There's nothing other than this title screen to stand between me and the actual gameplay, so we're just gonna jump straight in, I guess. MulticoloRs 1's main gameplay mechanics are very simple. You have a monitor where you can click this button to cycle between the numbers 1 to 6. You have 3 vents that you can click and hold to close, and you can look behind you in the office, where you can use the flash button to flash either the front or the back of the office. And with that, we're gonna discuss the main enemies of this game now. Every single character in this series is either based on a board game, a fidget, or a toy, with a few exceptions. For example, Ruby, who's obviously based on a Rubik's Cube. He will give you a sound cue in which you have a limited amount of time to shut the vent he's at. The next character is Rando, who's obviously based on a dice. Next to the number button on your camera is a dice icon that will cycle between numbers 1 to 6 every once in a while. You need to make sure that the number on the button matches the dice that Rando rolled, or else you die. The next 2 characters are Reject and RRR, or Triple R as I'm just gonna call him, with Reject being based on horror games and Triple R being based on video games in general. Won't lie, Reject's whole inspiration thing doesn't really make any sense and kind of feels redundant, since Triple R just kind of does the symbolism better in my opinion, but whatever. Both characters will make their own sound cues when they appear, which basically tells you have to flash them, with Reject appearing in the main office and Triple R appearing behind you. Halfway through the night, you get a flashlight and 2 more characters to deal with, being Remorse and R0. Both of these characters are labeled as vintage characters, who are weird creatures that, like, take the appearance of objects they see, I think, with both of these creatures taking the form of Rubik's Cubes for some reason, albeit incredibly distorted. Remorse will appear behind you with a sound cue in which you have to hold the flashlight on him until he goes away, while R0 appears in front of you and will constantly try to dodge your flashlight, kind of like Monster Rat from Candy's 3. Finally, towards the end of the night, 2 final characters get added, these being Restrain, another vintage character, and Trouble, who is based on the board game Trouble. Restrain will sit behind you and can either be dealt with the flashlight or the flash in order to keep them at bay, while Trouble is basically just Flumpty's one Grungfist. Don't flip up the monitor too much when he's around or you die. Now honestly, I don't think the gameplay is actually all that bad. I think the 3 main mechanics in this game, being the monitor, the flash, and the flashlight, are all used pretty frequently during the game, as there's enough variety with the threats to actually like keep you on your toes, and it's actually not a terrible time. Something I will be a bit harsh about though is the music in this game, which I'm not a big fan, if I'm going to be completely real with you. I think the song I've been playing for most of this section, being the main night theme, Hex Code, is fine, but like a lot of the music in this game, like the main menu theme and the extras menu theme, like genuinely kind of hurt my ears, I will not lie. It is probably my least favorite part of the game. I was going to go on a whole spiel about the art of this game and how I'm not a big fan of that either, but this is a game from 2022 made in 3 days, so I should probably not be that harsh. But okay, enough reviewing for a second. This is really important. It's time for some story, everybody. It's time for some lore. So after you complete the night, you're introduced to another new character, being this character named Checkmate, who is supposed to be based on chess, obviously. The name wasn't a dead giveaway. We see him gloating about how great he is and how he's superior to all the other characters, as we see literally everyone's corpses, meaning yes, Checkmate did kill basically all of the characters, except for Trouble, which Checkmate questions why Trouble decided to side with the rest of the characters, with Trouble getting ready to shank him in response. And then that's it, then the game ends, before we get this little splash screen that explains adds a little more lore and story with this game. To keep it simple, every character in this series, with the exception of the vintage characters' power, comes from how much people get frustrated by the objects in real life. So for example, people would tend to get more frustrated at video games and chess than a Rubik's Cube, for example. Checkmate has the highest frustration level in this entire game, which makes it more powerful than everyone else in the game, including Trouble. This power that Checkmate has gives him a massive ego, as he feels he needs to destroy all the other objects to be the very best, which I guess he does kind of succeed with. And with that, we wrap up MulticoloRs 1. Overall, I'm gonna give the game a 5 out of 10. I don't think the gameplay is that bad. I think it's pretty well paced, honestly, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. The art and the music kind of bring the game down for me, but again, I'll excuse the fact that this game is A, old, and B, made in 3 days. So I think the only way we can really go from here is up, right? So without further ado, let's head on over to MulticoloRs 2 and see how the series improved. So with MulticoloRs 2, we don't actually begin with the main menu. We actually begin with a cutscene where we see 2 characters I'm not going to name right now because I'm going to talk about them during the gameplay section. But the purple guy with the funny smile explaining how they got this very, very familiar looking crown. And then we get taken to the main menu. After clicking the play button and passing the loading screen, we get taken to yet another cutscene. At least you can skip this one. Where we see Checkmate, the main character from the last game, holding the decapitated head of Trouble. So you're telling me that Checkmate, who is built like this, was somehow able to kill Trouble, despite Trouble not only looking like, but also apparently being based on Chainsaw Man. But yeah, anyway. So Checkmate is talking to this new character that I don't think his name is said in this game, but his name is Sari. Oh yeah, Sari is like the main antagonist of the whole series, by the way, but we'll talk about that later. Anyway, Sari tells Checkmate that he has exactly one more fidget left to kill, being this little fidget cube thing named QB, in which QB just so happens to be residing with all of the main quote-unquote antagonists of this game. He gets absolutely bodied by these 4, and then he gets tied up. Checkmate asks the same question he asked these 4 as he did with Trouble, wondering why on earth they're still fighting for the fidgets. Some funny dialogue happens, and then the game can finally begin. Now, the main gameplay of MulticoloRs 2 is actually kind of different from the first game. Instead of just dealing with all these threats normally like any other FNAF fan game, you need points in order to buy the resources necessary to deal with the threats in this game. So to get those points, you need to play the Taff Zone minigame. Oh yeah, Taff also showed up in the intro cutscene. He's just a little like Jenga tower. There's not much to say about him. The minigame consists of you stacking these blocks on these orbs in order to get points, in which, like I said before, you use these points to buy items necessary to deal with our 4 characters in this game. Yeah, this game only has half of the enemies that the original does, which is an interesting choice, and I will touch on that later, but I'm sure they're gonna have interesting ways to deal with them, right? Our first character is Torch, who's based on the game Exploding Kittens. She appears semi-randomly throughout the night, and you need to have a diffuse card on you in order to deal with her. Your inventory can only hold up to 3 of these items that can be bought behind you, so it's best you strategize when and what you buy. She's definitely the easiest character to deal with in the entire game, as the diffuse card only costs 10 points. The next character I'm going to be talking about is Wildcard, who's obviously based off of Uno. Right next to the shop where you buy all your resources, there's a little Wildcard distance meter that tells you how close Wildcard is to you. And below that is the card that you need in order to deal with Wildcard, which can either be yellow, green, red, or blue. The color switches every 2 seconds, so you need to absolutely time it perfectly in order to deal with him properly. Or, you know, you could just buy the wild card, which covers all 4 of the colors. Okay, so that's 2 characters that just consist of when they appear, buy the item that you need to deal with them. Okay, a little underwhelming, but surely it's not gonna happen a 3rd time, right? Overdrive is the next character, being based on Battleship. A countdown will appear every once in a while, counting down from 5 all the way to 1 to show how close he is to you. When he appears in front of you, be sure to have a missile ready. Okay, you see the problem with this game? We have 3 characters that fundamentally all do the exact same thing of grind the minigame, buy the item, use that item on the character. It's not even like it's hard to get points, considering that the Taff Zone minigame has a clear function that just clears the whole board for you for no extra fee. So basically, this ends up being the FNAF fan game equivalent of putting the square peg in the square hole. Now that Nigel guy, that is just kind of most FNAF fan games. I don't know why you're making such a big deal about this one. And that's because I know that this concept could be done way better than just how it's done here. Though I should remind myself, along with the audience, that this game was in fact made in only a week. And even then, at least there's one character in this game that doesn't abide by the same gimmick that the other 3 do. That being Twisted, who's based on the game Twister. She sits at the window, and every once in a while she'll make an audio cue indicating that her spinner is stuck on a color. Like the last game, your given a camera flash that you can actually change the color of by buying a color changer from the shop. You need a flash with the color that matches the color that her spinner is stuck on in order to keep her from advancing a stage. If she advances all of her stages, you're dead. And yeah, that's basically the gameplay of this game. I can 100% see the potential that this game has with its concept, being a more unique take on the typical resource management gameplay that most FNAF fan games tend to stick to. The problem is just how safe this game plays it, with again, 3 of the 4 enemies in this game doing the same thing. And it's so weird because it feels like there's like the illusion that these characters do different things. With Torch's random nature, War Drive's visible timer, and whatever the hell is going on with Wildcard's mechanic. Like, I don't know why his mechanic need to be so complicated when you can just buy the Wildcard and just make him another Torch in War Drive. But yeah, I think everybody knows my opinion on the gameplay of this game. Let's talk about the art and the music. The character designs and the art overall are a significant step up from the previous game. It's nothing super crazy or anything, but the game definitely looks more visually pleasing than the first game did. And while the pre-night cutscene isn't animated great, I really like the idea that it was trying to do, with all of the characters using their board or card game based powers to attack Checkmate. Like, come on, Wildcard using the stop sign card from Uno as like a sort of like block is like, that's just so smart, I can't even lie, that's really cool. Oh yeah, and the music in this game is 1,000 times better than the first game as well. There's no standout track in this game in my opinion, but like, none of the songs hurt my ears like in the original game, so that's like a plus in my book. Actually, wait, one last thing related to the art. I really like towards the end of the night, the office changes to look more like the office in the first game. I think that's a pretty neat detail. But anyway, we beat the night. It's time for some story again. So after we beat the game, we get another cutscene where Checkmate begins to notice something crawling into the little area he's in. I don't know if it's an office or not. I don't know. I've just been calling it that because it's a FNAF fan game. And he is met face to face with Sin. That is the name of the character. And he just kind of disappears, leaving his crown behind, which is how the MulticoloRs 2 characters got his crown. And that's where the game ends. Now, according to the extras menu in this game, Sin is the amalgamation of all of Checkmate's consequences, tracking and hunting him down. So I'm gonna assume that he's an amalgamation of all of the dead characters from MulticoloRs 1, but I'm not sure. Oh yeah, also Rando's here, which they were not in the main game at all, so I guess this is supposed to imply that they survived what happened in MulticoloRs 1, I guess? Hey, it's me. Yeah, you know, editing Nigel here. Yes, you know that weird fly swatter looking thing? Yeah, that's not a part of Sorry, that's Rando apparently. Which I only figured out because of the game files, even though I guess it's kind of obvious considering it's purple and looks nothing like it'd be a part of Sin, but whatever. Back to your regularly scheduled retrospective. Okay, now I think that wraps up everything to do with MulticoloRs 2. Overall, I'm gonna give the game like another 5 out of 10, but a way higher 5 out of 10 than the original MulticoloRs. The game looks better, it has better music, and the gameplay had a really solid idea behind it, but the game kind of shot itself in the foot with its difficulty, making it so boring that it ends up just feeling really, really repetitive. Like with MulticoloRs 1, at least there were 3 different mechanics that you had to constantly juggle throughout the night. Here, you really only have 1, technically 2, and getting enough points for resources in this game is so easy. Like, look at my footage. I have so much points, and I've already bought a diffuse card, a wild card, and a missile, and I'm still doing fine. But hey, it looks like I'm asking for a challenge, and I think the game is too easy. Well, good thing MulticoloRs 2, the challenge is here. Yeah, I bet you weren't expecting me to talk about this, huh? This is a weird little spin-off joke game that Bob posted on an alt account called Nell, which is based on one of her other sonas. The main 2 differences that I noticed when playing this is that the TAF blocks are way smaller, and there's always 2 orbs on screen, meaning in theory you can get money faster, but you have to be way more precise and way faster. And right next to the shop is this little schmuck that'll constantly need to be given points, which I will admit does kind of fix the problem with you having way too much money in this game, meaning you actually need to lock in and do good at the minigame in order to succeed. I died to War Drive, and I gave up immediately. But I respect that there is a harder version of the game out there, as I'm pretty sure this is harder than the actual max mode in MulticoloRs 2. Oh yeah, there's a max mode in MulticoloRs 2. Yeah, that's everything I need to say about this game. So now, it's time to jump into the final major MulticoloRs game that is currently released at the time of this video. Let's talk about MulticoloRs Negative, as the time of this video being recorded, is the most recently released MulticoloRs game in the series, being a prequel, if the negative didn't give it away, rather than being a sequel. Similar to MulticoloRs 2, we begin the game with a cutscene, showing a very different looking Checkmate talking to a new character named Buzzkill, with the end of this cutscene cutting to this game's 2 main characters, Rando and Sorry, and then we're taken to the menu just like last time. After clicking the play button and looking at this very, very sad loading screen, we get to yet another cutscene, again, just like last time, where we we see Rando and Sari talking to each other, with Sari saying that he made this big discovery, that discovery being that both of them are more powerful than any board or fidget, and that if they combine their powers, they could basically rule the world, with Rando rejecting the offer and calling Sari a tyrant, which kinda ticks him off, causing Sari to attack Rando, ending the cutscene. Before the main gameplay begins, we get taken to a little settings screen where we have some options, with these options being in easy mode, the option to show the tips, which basically tell you when characters appear during the night, as well as the option to enable or disable these things called the rage effects, which I will talk about later. And then we're put in the main gameplay of this game, and hoo boy, it is a doozy. So much like the last Multicolors game, this game has a mini game. It's still you dropping blocks on orbs, but this time you're doing it horizontally instead of vertically, meaning the orbs can spawn either on the left or the right. Oh, and there's no clear function, so you can't cheese the mini game. You actually have to do good at it. Doing good in the mini game gets you mana, which can be used on one of two things. The first thing is actually being able to upgrade certain aspects of the mini game, being able to upgrade how much mana you get from playing the mini game and how much mana you can hold at a time. I really dig this extra layer of risk and reward that was added to this game, with you having to decide whether it's more worth it to upgrade the mini game or actually use your spells, which are the other thing you use mana for. There are 4 different spells you can spend your mana on, being a flash, I mean it wouldn't be a Multicolors game without one, a lighter, a blaster, and a self-heal. Oh yeah, this game has a health system where if you mess up with dealing with an enemy, they don't kill you, they just damage you, which I think is kind of the most pointless inclusion in the whole game. I don't know, it just kind of feels like it's another click of the A and D key in order to get to the spell you actually want to go to instead of the heal. Maybe if health was exclusive to easy mode, but that's just me, I guess. I don't know, I don't jive with the health mechanic that much in this game. But that's actually not my biggest problem with this game. My biggest problem with this game is how you activate 2 of the spells, being the flash and the lighter. So you know how in Multicolors 2 to use your items you just left click like any other game on this planet? Okay, not every other game, but you know what I mean. But no, in MulticoloRs Negative, you have to press the S key in order to use these 2 specifically, because the blaster you can just click like normal. You're gonna find out very quickly that I have very little to complain about this game, and that this is genuinely the only really big issue I have with the game, and I think everything else is actually handled very well. An example of this is our enemy roster for this game. The first enemy we're introduced to is Sari. He actually has 3 attacks in this game, making this game kind of a boss fight against him with some others thrown in. He'll basically make this weird slurping noise when he's at the hallway, and you just have to go there and, you know, flash him to make him go away. Pretty simple stuff. His second attack is to use his really long arm to try to get into your room, with you having to hold the lighter on it to make it go away. And it takes quite a while, but also the arm doesn't descend very fast, so you can kind of juggle this with some other stuff if you're good at switching spells quickly enough. Sari's final attack is to throw a Sari card, which you just simply have to use the blaster on to make it go away. The first, actually different character to be introduced in this night is EQno, who is based on Monopoly. He too resides in the hallway, but rather than instantly appearing at the front of the hallway, will slowly make his way there. Once he reaches the front of the hall, just hold the lighter on him until he goes away. The next character to be introduced is Cancer, who's based on Cards Against Humanity. He sits in the main part of the room and slowly materializes, requiring you to use the blaster on him to completely reset his progress. Our fourth character is a Riot, who's based on Dangly Spider Toys. Okay, yeah, I think at this point the inspiration's kind of, you know, stopped being about board games and card games, which is a bit unfortunate because I do think the designs that are based on board and card games are more creative than these ones that are more based on toys. But I still do like a Riot's design. I think her design is sick. She never actually shows up in the game though. Instead, her thousands of siblings known as the Crawlies take her place. They basically show up on your screen and you have to flick up or down with your mouse depending on where they are. The final character to be introduced during the gameplay is Busy, who is a bee based on Bee Toys. She slowly emerges from the hole in the wall in your main room and you just have to use the flash on her to reset her progress completely. Now I must say, when it comes to the roster of this game, I really like that it's more like Multicolors 1's roster, where it's a roster that progressively gets added throughout the night instead of all 4 being active from the start and kind of all doing the same thing. Like, you have 1 lighter threat at the door, you have 1 flash threat at the door, and then you have 2 blaster threats, a flash threat, and a lighter threat in your room, along with the Crawlies that are kind of just a miscellaneous threat, which gives every mechanic an equal time to shine, which I think is super cool about this game. Anyway, when the night is almost over, depending on if you have the rage effects on or off, you get to see a bunch of images of Rando like freaking out and stuff. And look, that's the Multicolors Two-Face. Oh my god, I love continuity. Also, I really like how the night ends on a beat drop, even though the song itself isn't over, with it being a very seamless transition into the final cutscene of the game, which basically consists of Rando wondering why on earth they didn't just stop Sari the moment they noticed he started going all tyrannical evil dictator mode, and vows that one day they will find Sari again. The cutscene then transitions back to Buzzkill and Checkmate talking again, just like the first cutscene of the game, with them talking about the uncertainties of the situation they both currently find themselves in, with Buzzkill telling Checkmate to still hold on to hope, even though it doesn't really look like there is any right now. And that's it for the main game. So now let's discuss the art in this game, and I have to say, this is the best the series has looked. The environments are really well done, the character designs are the best that they've been in the whole series. Hell, Rando got a freaking crazy glow up. Like, they look so much more interesting than they did in the first two games. The animation is definitely also at its highest point in this game as well. I like all the subtle movements during the ending cutscene that just give the characters more, like, personality. I think that's a pretty neat touch. The domino attack thing that Sari does to Rando is cool in that one cutscene. And overall, it's just a very, very nice looking game. And on top of that, the OST is also the best it's ever been for this series. The main night theme of this game is a straight banger, especially the final part during the rage section and during the cutscene bit. It's just so good. Oh, and don't worry, all the ambient cutscene tracks and stuff are also pretty good as well. It is kind of disappointing that the extras menu is unfinished and the custom night isn't even tested. I will excuse this considering this is like towards the end of development, I'm assuming. And even then, we still got our character info, so I can still talk about the lore in this game. So all of the other characters that appeared during the night gameplay that weren't Sari were all used to be Rando's friends that Sari mercilessly killed primarily out of spite towards Rando, basically making them a bunch of mind-controlled zombies, basically. Since this is MulticoloRs Negative, I imagine that after this game, Rando kind of went into hiding, which is why they appear like every other fidget in the first MulticoloRs game is an attempt to hide from Sari, which explains why they look so different in this game compared to how they look in 1 and 2. Now, as for Checkmate, he definitely got a new design, looking way closer to how Rando looks in this game compared to how Checkmate looked in 1 and 2, where he looked a lot more like Sari, which I know is 100% intentional because it's something I'm going to bring up in the next section. What I'm trying to say is that Checkmate is a good guy now. He's in the underworld after getting killed by Sin in the second game. And I think that is everything I have to say about MulticoloRs Negative. Overall, it is a massive step up from the first two games, taking every part that I liked about the first two games and making a gameplay loop that is fun and constantly changing, while also having really good art and a really good OST. Again, like I said before, my only major gripe with this game is the fact that 2 of the 3 spells that are necessary to complete the game you have to push the S key for, which kind of messes with my muscle memory a bit. I did get used to it eventually, but I still do think it is a knock against the game, but it's the literal only knock I have against it. And now I want to discuss the current state of the MulticoloRs series as of the time of making this video. So I won't lie, not much has been revealed about the upcoming MulticoloRs 3, otherwise known as Monarch Realm. However, that doesn't mean nothing was shown at all, as on Bob's channel, she released a song called B&W, which is meant for MulticoloRs 3. Alongside the release of B&W, Bob released a breakdown video covering why all the let motifs are there and what purpose they serve, and along with some other MulticoloRs lore in general. Bob also hinted at in B&W's description that the rest of the MulticoloRs story after the third game could not be told in game form, so take that as you will, I guess. I don't know. And with that, I think I've discussed everything I could possibly talk about when it comes to this series of games. These games, when it comes to their theming and stories, and hell, even their gameplay, have a lot of potential. I adore the idea of all of these characters being based on different board games and card games and whatnot. I think it's a super duper cool concept, and I think a lot can be done with this series. I have a link to the studio with all 3 of the games in the description. I also want to give a massive shout out to my good friend Flawless Games for once again making this absolutely beautiful thumbnail for the video. And with that, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe and do the bell thing. And I will see you guys in the next video. Take care, y'all.